Personally, growing up and living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, even attending Albuquerque High School where over half of the student population was Hispanic, I think that the Whole Foods English-only controversy is extremely important to address. After two employees at a Whole Foods market in Albuquerque, New Mexico were reprimanded for speaking Spanish to each other on the job, a whole new debate on language equality in the workplace arose. According to Ruben Navarrete in his CNN piece titled English Only at Whole Foods, Brian Baldizan and Lupe Gonzalez both claimed that they were suspended for speaking Spanish while working and complaining to a manager about this policy. In a growing global market, it is not only unjust and unfair for Whole Foods to have an English-only policy, but it also sets them back from their competitors on this global market. Mr. Baldizan and Mr. Gonzalez both possess a unique skill of being bilingual, which they could easily use to their advantage, and to the advantage of their employer, Whole Foods. Whole Foods, instead of rewarding these employees for their unique skills in the workplace, reprimanded them and suspended them. Whole Foods, by enforcing their English-only policy, not only demonstrated ignorance and inequality, but it also set themselves back from other companies who do not enforce obscene and discriminative rules such as this. After these two workers went to the media with their story, Whole Foods responded by saying that they were reprimanded for being rude at a work meeting and that there was no such English-only policy in place. This was contradicted by the executive marketing coordinator of Whole Foods stating, "Our policy states that all English-speaking team members must speak English to customers and other team members while on the clock." Clearly their policy is an English-only policy, which is unjust and was actually changed just after the incident. Just days after a petition arose against this English-only policy, Whole Foods Market CEO Walter Robb stated that he apologized for how unclear the rules concerning workplace interactions were and went on to say that he, with his senior staff, were revising the policy. The fact of the matter is that Whole Foods had an English-only policy in place and only did something about it in the face of vast media attention. This policy and their reaction to this policy both show that an English-only rule in the workplace environment is not only wrong on a moral and ethical level of freedom of speech, but it is also wrong on a business level. Whole Foods, by having an English-only policy in place, was limiting their customer base and not utilizing all of their resources in a growing and extremely competitive global market. I think that employees should be discouraged and prohibited from trying to belittle customers and coworkers with their bilingual capabilities, which is the other side to this argument, but just as in this case, they should be able to utilize these skills to further themselves and their employers. According to Thomas L. Friedman in his novel The Lexus and the Olive Tree, with the rise of technology, it is impractical to not market yourself to a wide variety of consumers. Instead of reprimanding workers for using their ability to communicate in multiple languages, it would be more practical to allow them to utilize their skills to appeal to a larger customer base. I think that this fact is shown to be true by the differences in the manager's reaction to the event and the reactions of the corporate office. The corporate office eventually thought it through and realized that it was not only unethical but also unpractical to go on with reprimanding these employees and continuing to enforce their English-only policy. In the end, the problem that is present in the Whole Foods English-only controversy is that Whole Foods was not operating in the new, diverse, globalized world, but Whole Foods in the end decided that they were ready to operate on this scale, which was displayed when they changed their English-only policy. Being bilingual is not something to be ashamed of in this day and age. It is a skill that you should be able to use and market as you wish. Any large or global company will agree that to succeed you need to market to as many consumers as possible, which is enabled by the use of other languages, and is therefore not something that should be frowned upon, but should be rather encouraged in the workplace. Thomas L. Friedman, in his novel, The Lexus and the Olive Tree, about globalization, once said that in a global market, a person has to market everything that they possibly can to succeed, because in a global market, there is a winner-takes-all philosophy, where the people at the top of any given field make by far the most money and are successful, whereas everyone else is struggling to catch up. Workers of Whole Foods were reprimanded for utilizing skills that they possess that could greatly benefit themselves and their company. This does not really make sense, but it is what happened in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is something that needs to change, to allow people to speak multiple languages and utilize skills that they possess to help further themselves and the companies that they work for. Encouragingly, Whole Foods did apologize and change their policies after this event. The freedom to speak whatever language you please is important and therefore should be protected.